Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on malware for sale, analyzing malware as a service on deep and dark web marketplaces. We're going to wait just a few minutes before we kick off and wait for everyone to join. Welcome to everyone joining. I see a few more people have joined us, so welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Daniel Pigeon. I'm product marketing at Cyberint, and with me is Akanksha Harjai. She goes by AK. She will be presenting on malware for sale, analyzing malware as a service on deep and dark web marketplaces. So we're going to wait maybe just 2 or 3 more minutes before we kick off. Welcome once again, everyone. We're going to start in just about 2 minutes. All right, welcome everybody. I see a few more people have joined us. Thanks once again for taking the time to join us for this webinar today. My name's Daniel, and I am product marketing at Cyberint. Akanksha Harjai is a solutions sales engineer. She'll be presenting today on malware for sale, analyzing malware as a service on deep and dark web marketplaces. So a couple housekeeping notes before we kick off. The webinar is being recorded, just to let everyone know. After the session, we will send out a link to the recording as well as the slides. So keep an eye out for that. We'll send out an email with all of that in the next day or two. And finally, questions. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat. It's a live webinar today. We're with you live. So if questions pop up, I think AK will try to answer them along the way. And if not, we have about 5 minutes reserved at the end for a short Q&A session. So with that, I think we can go ahead and kick off. AK, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks a lot. So good day, everybody who joined the call. Thank you for taking out the time. I'm AK, I'm based in Singapore, and I'm the solution sales engineer for Cyberint. Today, we will be talking about a very interesting and commonly discussed topic, which is malware. Okay, the different kind of strategies that these threat actors are using in terms of how they use malware to attack, to collect information, and to exploit. Okay, and then we will move on to talking about different kind of strategies that every organization can use in order to protect themselves and to make sure that they are safe and secure. All right, so we begin now. So the first thing is just a quick agenda of this particular call here. Okay, so we're going to talk about an overview of how these malwares are working out there, how they actually collect information and is being sold on different marketplaces in the dark web. I know dark web is a very interesting topic for people to think about because that is something that usually we don't have access to, right? We are not logging into dark web every day and looking at what's happening out there. Dark web is just like an ocean, and there could be a lot of information which people are collecting and selling and exchanging. So how does the marketplace work? Okay, that's what we will be looking at. And then when we talk about malware, it's also very interestingly, it's a model which is just like a product. Okay, so they have malware as a service model. We will go in depth later. And then finally talk about how these malware or these attackers are clever than us, or more clever or more intelligent than us, to find out different kind of evasion techniques to bypass most of the security controls that we have in any organization and still end up being successful in terms of an attack. And lastly, looking at what can we do as human beings who are just trying to protect our organization, trying to have all kind of different kind of controls to have a good security posture. So we will talk about different mitigation strategies, and then we will open the floor for any Q&A. By the way, as I speak, if you still have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat box and we will try to answer them quickly. All right, so with that, let's go into the overview of the trends that we see. Now, what is malware? How many different kind of malware do we see out there which are more popular now? So when we look at the landscape right now, these are the common 4 types of malicious softwares that are available. Okay, the first one is wipers. And as the name suggests, these wipers are actually designed to destroy data in multiple ways. Okay, like maybe overwriting files or encrypting files, just like what a ransomware does, imitate a ransomware. They can even do a master boot record corruption, or they can also corrupt your master file table index, which means that they are designed in a way to wipe out everything that you have within your system. Okay. Now, because of all the Ukraine versus Russia conflict that has been happening for the past few years, actually, we did see a huge spike in wipers, okay, to perform persistent threats against different kind of machines and organizations. So that's category 1. The second one, which I feel is usually more effective and a lot more used, is info stealers. What is an info stealer? Interestingly, what they do is that once this malware is infected in your system, in your laptop, desktop, whether it's a personal device or like a corporate system, once this is infected, it actually steals a lot of sensitive data based on your credentials, everything that every browser that you're using, every URL that you're visiting, whether it's your personal stuff like Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, or if you're using your corporate URLs to log into your Teams or your Outlook, Salesforce, everything will be recorded, will be captured. And these info stealers are able to capture this information and then send it to a command and control server in the form of a malware log, okay, which contains all the information that the malware was able to find from the system. Not only credentials, it also takes away session cookies, takes away some of the files in different directories that it can find, usually from the desktop. And this basically means that the threat actor can understand and learn about your life, because he or she knows now that these are the commonly visited URLs. This is the pattern of the password that you use. So the danger or the repercussion of this kind of info stealer malware can be huge. All right. And the third one is rats. So we all probably have heard about rats, which is, again, looking at remote access Trojans. Now, this is a malware that helps the attacker to gain full admin privileges and remote control of the target or the infected computer. So these rats are usually downloaded with a seemingly legitimate user-requested programs, like maybe video games or some sort of email attachment via phishing email. Those are the usual delivery methods used for these. And then the last one, which there's no need, because everybody gets scared with this name, which is ransomware, or the other word could be crypto lockers, which again are more targeted in terms of encrypting all the data that you have on the victim's system, okay, and ask for a ransom in return of the data. So ransomware the last few years, we all probably have heard about Lockbit. Okay, they are probably the most famous and the most jazzy ransomware families that exist in this world. They have very clever ways of doing their marketing, reaching out to people. In fact, they have very lucrative offers when they want to hire people to work for Lockbit. So we do come across ransomware cases quite often now, and usually a ransomware attack or a crypto locker doesn't really happen in one day. Okay, there's always an initial attack vector. There's always something that happens, or there's a small leak, which organizations tend to ignore because they might not sound or look like something big to them. They will tend to ignore, which in the end results into a ransomware attack. So these are different types of malicious softwares that we see out there. And if we talk about why do attackers use this? Okay, what is the idea behind having a malware, or trying to infect machines using a malware, right? So almost every type of attack that exists is motivated because of money, right? If you look at just last year, there was 4.5 million US dollars that were actually spent, or was the cost of a ransomware attack, which means everybody needs money, and exploiting these malwares or using them to infect a system, or get an entry point into an organization is the easiest way to get inside. And that is why, to make money, attackers tend to use malware as their initial attack vectors. All right, so it can be used in different ways, can be delivered in so many different ways. Just as I mentioned before, it could be just, based on a download of a software that you do. Maybe you probably ended up using an unofficial app store to download some app that you probably don't want to pay money for, or, it could be just based on your browser ads, the ones that pop up. It could be based on a phishing email. So there are so many ways, okay, to deliver this to the end user and exploit them. Now, if we look at what are the common ways of how the initial access happens, based on a study, we can say that malware is actually the topmost because it's able to steal credentials. And credentials is what you own as part of your own identity, right? So I'm AK, I have my email ID for Cyberint, I have my password. That is what I own. This is my sensitive information. So if somebody can get that from me, they'll probably be able to exploit me or compromise me in a very fast and a quick way, as compared to probably looking at a vulnerability that they can exploit, or sending me a phishing email. There's 1 in 100 chances that I will click on a spam email or a spam link. But if there's a malware which is infected and they have my credentials, I can basically do nothing, because I might not be even aware that this is happening with me, right? So it is important to understand why malware, looking at malwares and looking at what kind of infection you all have on your personal as well as your corporate machines is truly very important. And I will talk about how the malware lifecycle actually works, right? So when we talk about an attack, there's always a kill chain, right? How do they start and how do they end? So looking at a broader picture from a kill chain standpoint, we can see that usually the first step would be for the attacker, the threat actor, to actually obtain a malware on the dark web, right? So when we speak about different kinds or types of malicious software, you can buy them, okay? And then you can use them to attack somebody. So the first step is acquisition. The second step is actually looking at how do you actually package this now? Are you going to use some sort of document or file to package this malware or the payload, or would you use some sort of applications, okay, maybe from a third-party store, or you're going to use a browser ad? It could be different ways. Once you are able to package this particular malware, it's time for delivery. Right? Make sure that the end user gets it, the system is compromised. And how do you do that? Is the common ways, or the most common way would be actually to send out malicious emails. Now, we are all aware that we tend to use all of those email protection solutions to make sure that the spam is filtered out, any kind of phishing is filtered out. But honestly, attackers are more clever than us, as I mentioned before, right? So they have ideas to bypass, they have ideas to make it look so legitimate that probably they will be able to bypass your email solutions as well, right? Looking at phishing sites, which is so common. So if you have a bank account today, right, and you go to the bank URL to probably log in and look at your account balance or make a transaction, you might be redirected to a page which really looks like your bank page or the main URL, but it's not. It's a phishing website. And you are probably busy so much with work or something else that you don't even notice that you're actually logging in to a phishing website. That means you're actually giving your PII data, your username, your password, everything to the threat actor. And you're probably going to click on something to download your statement or download any kind of stuff from that website, which might have the malware inserted in it. And then talking about social media, all of us probably are present on different social media platforms. We tend to open Facebook and Twitter or Instagram in between our work just to get a break, but we never know what are we clicking on. Okay, there could be different kind of fake profiles that the threat actors can create. It is so easy to do that on social media today. And that can also result into delivery of a malware to you. Okay. And the last one is, again, about different kind of advertisements that we see. So today, when I have my phone next to me and I speak about maybe buying a new bag, or I talk about a new brand that I'm looking at, my Facebook, my Instagram will start showing me ads for it, even Google, right? The moment I open my phone, probably I can have those ads popping up. But how do I know that these ads are legit? They are not malicious. Maybe there's some sort of, suspicious file or a malware inserted in those files that I'm looking at, or those ads I'm looking at. So these are, again, easier to use, and it's very common for people like us to get into this trap. Okay. When we talk about infection, so of course the payload is now delivered to the end user. Now, what does it do? So usually operating systems, your different softwares that are using, or your browser, these are the common places where the malware will kind of function. So that's the infection point. And then what's the next thing that the threat actor wants? So he did all of this effort to reach to the infection stage. Now he or she needs the data. All right, so the infected system is now going to notify to the command and control server and start sending out all the information that the threat actor needs. Okay, any kind of sensitive data that you have on your phone or your infected machine, any kind of logs that the threat actor can get hands to, maybe they want to breach a corporate network. And this is where it begins. Okay, this is the starting point. Everything that I told you before, the next step is what the threat actor is doing. And usually all of us are not aware of it. But once it's there, okay, that is where the attack starts. So when we look at those ransomware attacks that happens, you see in the news that somebody got attacked, is going through a ransomware. It's usually all of this effort was done by the threat actor before it reached to that stage. And if only we had the capability to even look at the acquisition phase or weaponization phase, imagine the amount of money and the effort and the trauma that organizations can save based on just having the right controls at the right time. All right. Any questions so far?
No questions from the audience so far, but really useful slide here. This looks really great and really helps to understand, the whole picture, the high level overview of how these things work. So yeah, very clear so far, and very useful information so far. Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Okay, so let's go further. Now, we spoke about how the malwares or what kind of malwares can we see out there? You know, what's the different ways or processes and stages that the malware needs to go through, or the threat actor needs to go through to get to the final phase. Now, let's talk about dark web marketplaces. Okay, so once the data is in there, okay, the threat actor receives all of this. What happens next? And what do we see based on our dark web capability to, in terms of marketplaces, what kind of information do we see out there? All right, so looking at what is for sale, what can you buy? So today, if you log into forums or to marketplaces or look at different threat actors, their profiles, you can see there's a lot of information that's up for sale, right? And why do people like to sell information? Is because not everybody has the same interest. Threat actors have different talent at different stages. That means there are people who love to attack, okay? They are passionate about that. There are people who just like to buy information to, you know, create an exploit using that. There are a group of people who just like to sell the information and make money out of it. So there are different people, just like how we have different job titles here within dark web. There are different kind of threat actors with different profiles, different interests, different talents. So in this case, what we see, we do see a lot of attack as a service, which means that there are hackers that can be hired. There are, you know, different kind of toolkits that can be created just to actually perform an attack. Okay, so it's again a product, right? We also see a lot of exploit codes for CVEs, because no matter how much your system prompts that you need to do an update, okay, or, you know, there is a certain application that requires an update, or Windows or Mac needs an update, you need to restart your system. We tend to, you know, procrastinate a bit because maybe we are busy with something else, maybe we forgot about it. It is normal and usual for organizations and even for personal devices to not be completely patched, okay? There are a lot of CVEs out there which can be exploited. There are a lot of 0 days which can be used as an attack. So that is there up for sale, right? Leaked credentials, as we just spoke about, right? It's very important because now if I know, if a threat actor knows my passwords, he probably knows, you know, what kind of passwords I use across all my systems, my banking, my personal, or my social media accounts. So leaked credentials are always out there, up for sale. You can probably buy them, you know, if you want to attack somebody or you want to do an account takeover, you can, it's easily available. And then because we do have leaked credentials, we also have hijacked accounts, which means that if there are any accounts that an attacker can already take over using the kind of credentials that he or she has, those accounts are also up for sale. So if you don't want to do all the effort of going through, you know, buying the credentials and trying to get inside, you just need somebody's hacked accounts. It's easy and you can buy them as well. Now, the most important one, I would say, or the most curious one would be stolen credit cards, because who doesn't want to use a credit card to, you know, go out for shopping and don't want to pay for it, right? So you can always buy stolen credit cards, which are leaked out there. And you will be surprised to see that it's not just the credit card number, right? There's a CVV, there's a full name, all the things associated to a card, which is needed to make a payment, right? Everything is out there, which is being sold that you can buy. And the highlight for this call is malware. So malware as a service is, again, a very commonly found thing on the dark web. Again, I'll show you some examples in the next slide on how it looks like. So if anybody from this group here wants to buy maybe a malware log or as a malware service, okay, they can use the next 2 slides to find it out, okay? So if we look at this example here, these are some of these attackers who have been selling. So you can actually buy it for $5, okay? It's actually quite cheap all you need to do is find them. You can actually use even your normal browser. If you don't want to use dark web, you can actually use your surface web to find these threat actors and find all of these kits that you can be buying and downloading and using it against whoever you wish to, right? But just a word of caution here, while you download these files, just make sure that there is no malware within the file itself, right? Because they are threat actors in the end, okay? We should be having trust issues with them, which means that they might be infected with another malware that you might not be aware of. So if you are buying these or you're downloading these, please make sure that you're able to find a trusted source of information. Right. So there's another example here now, very funny, right? You can actually look at how big or how diverse is the malware out there. Okay, you can actually buy a red line stealer, you can actually buy a credit card stealer, or you can look at maybe something which is a Bitcoin stealer, all of these crypto, because of the mass who is following it is all out there. So these are some of the examples where it ranges from $1 to probably it can go to $100 as well, depending on how mature or which kind of malware kit you are looking for. But these are readily available for everybody out there to go download and use it for any purpose that you would like. Okay. Just to show you a glimpse of how it looks like. So if you were to buy something, okay, they will give you everything in terms of even a handy book, okay, or maybe like a guide on how you're going to use this malware kit, okay, what is the type of attack that you can perform, and there will be associated information inside, as well as a refund policy, which I'm not too sure how it's going to work, but maybe if the malware kit doesn't work for you, you can actually claim a refund. So the threat actors are also looking for feedback, because they are trying to develop a very good kit, or they're trying to improve as much as possible. So they do look for feedback from people who actually buy their kits out there. Okay, so now we are going to look at how does malware-as-a-service works. Okay, we spoke about types, we spoke about how do they sell it on different marketplaces, but how do these threat actors operate inside the dark web? Okay, so when we look at this, malware-as-a-service is just like a product. Okay, you probably can understand based on a product company, what is the first thing that you need? You need to develop a good product that works, okay, and that can be sold. So product development for these threat actors is important. They actually hire people, okay, who are developers who can do a great job in helping them to develop this particular malware. So their product development team has to be very strong. So they do have this vertical where they are, developing and improving the product. The second thing, obviously, is about marketing, right? I mean, everybody needs to know about what they have. Okay, what is this malware? So they spend a lot of money in different ways to actually do marketing and promotions. Okay, it's very important for them to be known in the dark web. The third one is customer support, just like all of us, would have experienced. So customer support is, again, based on when they actually are able to sell this, okay, how are people experiencing it? Okay, if there's an issue, maybe something doesn't work, or the malware kit doesn't work, how do they find it out, and how do they support their customers for that? And then we look at reputation management, again, because sometimes, you might buy a malware kit and it doesn't work for you. You're probably going to tell your fellow threat actor friends, or you probably might post it on Twitter or Telegram saying that, oh, this malware kit, I bought it for 50 USD, it didn't work for me. Maybe the reviews are not that good. So they need to manage their reputation, which means they do keep a tab on multiple forums and discussion channels to find out what are people talking about them out there. Okay, what's their reputation in the market and how can they improve on it? And then the last one is definitely profit and reinvestment. So once they are earning money and making profit, of course, they reinvest based on making their product better. This life cycle is not new, right? We all know how any product company works, but this is exactly applicable in cybercrime, especially when it comes to malware as a service model. Okay, there's a lot of competition out there, which means, when we look out for a job, for example, we see so many companies and there's so much competition. It's the same for them because they really need a space, a name in the market. And that is why they spend a lot of time, effort, and money into building this the most effective way possible. So to see an example, when they hire people, they are choosy, they are selective because they want to make sure they hire the right kind of talent for the job, right? So this is just an example to see how, a malware family is trying to hire people. Okay, what is the minimum requirement that they need? Okay, in this case, they need somebody who can actually, work on, distribution. They can work on different kind of things. And when you actually visit the job posting, you can find how much they're going to probably pay you, in what way, and what would be your roles and responsibilities. So this is just like LinkedIn jobs or, whatever portal that you guys are aware of based on when you look for, a job. So this is just similar to that. And then
can I ask one quick question, AK? Because this is
course.
just so fascinating to me. I have to jump in here with a question. Do you have any idea how they handle payment? Is this, so when suppose somebody applies for this job and they go through an interview process and all these sorts of things, and then there's some sort of agreement that's made, how do they handle payment on this sort of, like, how does one receive a salary in the cybercrime world?
Well, Daniel, I think you would probably need to get hired by them to know the exact answer. No, I'm just kidding. No. So usually I would say the easiest way to do that would be using cryptocurrency, is only because it is decentralized and it's hard or tougher for people to track. Okay, so making transactions using that can be anonymous. Okay, and there's hardly anybody who is able to build something to track it and to kind of understand how the money flows there. So that, as per what I know, I think would be the easiest way to give out salaries or incentives or bonuses, or maybe think of other creative ways that they can do that in the form of remuneration. Yeah.
Thank you. That makes sense.
All right. So for again, this is what we saw was an example of how they hire, and this is again an example of how they launch their product. Okay, so marketing is important, promotions are important. So in this case, what we see is that they're actually the Blackguard. Okay, they are actually able to announce that they are releasing another version. Okay, just like how product companies release new versions of the product, they're actually releasing a new version, and this is the update, or what has changed, what has gotten better. If there's a pricing change, which you can see per month is $400. If you want a lifetime subscription to this particular malware kit, you can actually pay $1,000 and you can just have the subscription to yourself. So interestingly, this is how they post, okay, and they create awareness within the dark web market. All right, this is again another example of how they bring in discounts and, again, try to be very lucrative. In this case, they are just giving a huge discount, okay, to for people who want to buy a stealer or a worm or a clipper or a miner, right? For all of these things, how much money you need to pay, and this is just, a way to discount and, put up on sale so they have more audience to look at it. So when you come across all of this data, what do we understand from here? The first thing is that for sure, these all threat actors are very mature in nature. Okay, this is not just the older versions of, when I was a child, I used to hear about what is a virus, what is a malware, but it's beyond that now, right? Everybody has gotten mature, has gotten clever and more intelligent to understand how this works. okay, we have more and more security solutions coming up, but at the same time, threat actors are keeping pace with that to make sure they're able to bypass and really develop something that can be used effectively and successfully. Okay. Lastly, as I said, they are looking for feedback. So they do look at reviews. Even threat actor versus threat actor can actually give a review. Even different families can actually give a feedback. So if you see here, there's a star rating, there's a review, there's a feedback, which really tells you that if today you were going to log into one of these websites and want to buy a malware, how do you choose which one is the best one? I mean, when you go look out for a new phone or a laptop, you always look at reviews, right? And this is the same thing. So they are making it readily available for people to understand and how they can compare. And this is based on their reputation management as well. All right, I will move to talking about info stealers, which is, again, the most common way of using the malware these days, because it gives you a lot of information. So just to share with you, these info stealers are, again, going to be stealing a lot of sensitive data from the infected system. So it's your credentials, all the username, passwords, and the URLs that you're visiting, your financial information in terms of your credit card details that you have saved on your browser, or you're entering your details on some of the transaction platforms, your session cookies, because they can be used to bypass MFA, your crypto wallets, if you're using any on your system. It also takes screenshots of the different activities that you're performing on your system, which is infected. And lastly, the operating system information, the version of your OS, the version of the different applications or softwares which are installed in your system. Now, this gives a lot of information to the threat actor to start working with, because one, if he knows your credentials, it's easier for them to do an account takeover. Secondly, if they know your financial information, they can start selling your credit card data online somewhere, or they can misuse the credit card to perform a fake transaction. Thirdly, cookies can be used to bypass MFA. Crypto wallets is the same thing. They can do an account takeover. And operating system information, or the application versions, help them to find out if it's an older version, what are the CVEs available on that version, and how can they exploit your system further. So everything that they collect has a repercussion to it. If we look at the different names of the info stealers, right? We have Redline, which is the most popular one, okay? But I would say the market is very competitive, and I do see Raccoon more often. They are reaching out better. I think their marketing is doing better than Redline, okay? So they are getting popular now. And then we have more like Meta and Vidar and all of these different kind of kits which are circulating out there, okay? And this is the most common name that you would probably hear when you speak about info stealers, at least with the people who have gotten infected before. And this data is actually based on last year, okay, based on the different investigation and studies that Cyberint has done. All right. Now, if we speak about what's the target, I mean, this is, again, a global data. This is based on last year as well. As you see, Brazil is the most targeted country as of now, and India is the second, which was first before, okay? Indonesia and India are actually kind of at the same level right now, and US, which used to be on the second place, in the year 2021, has actually fell to fifth now, which means that probably it's getting better in terms of security. So this is how they target the market, okay, in terms of global or geolocation, I would say. But even if the cases in a certain country are lesser, okay, the chances of infection can be different, right? So you never know who and when can actually get infected by an info stealer, even on your personal system or your mobile phones, right? So it can be very different. Just to show an example of how a malware log looks like. Okay, this is a real life example from Wells Fargo, where we can see that this is a screenshot of how InfoStealer captures your information. First thing to note is that they do have the client IP information, which is the IP of the infected system at the time of infection, right? And if you see the credentials log file, everything that the user was visiting, their Microsoft, their Okta login, other stuff, all the username, passwords in clear text have been captured. Right? And on the image on the right actually shows you more information or a different example of somebody probably in the Philippines using Citibank. So if we look at this data, what do we understand is that, first of all, everything is compromised now. Okay, as we mentioned before, it could be session cookies and directories as well. And this is an example of the session cookies. And if you see that the highlighted part, which is wellsfargo.com, we can easily understand that it looks like somebody who is using a corporate machine. Okay, it looks like a corporate machine which is infected because of all the corporate URLs which are being used on the machine here. All right, so now this is an example. And then what we see, again, how do you use InfoStealer as a service? Just to give you a rough idea, if you would like to spend some money after this webinar, you can probably use $150 a month or maybe $200 a month just to get any of these InfoStealer as a service to yourself. Okay, and you can target whoever whatsoever you would like to do. It can fetch you a lot of information, just like what you saw in the previous slide. Okay, so this is what we see out there based on our studies, and this is what we think could be bigger in the future, because all these upcoming InfoStealers are working on their product, are working on their marketing and promoting it out there, trying to give more discounts as well. So these stealers are coming up, and we might soon start seeing them more often. So for example, in this list, Aurora is now very commonly seen. Okay, I can see that a lot of infected systems are because of Aurora stealers. So they are growing and they are becoming bigger and better. So we spoke about how all these things work. Now let's quickly go over the thought behind the threat actor on how they can actually exploit and evade the security controls that we have. So when we look at CVEs, and I spoke about this before, right? So we have different kind of softwares that we are using, your Microsoft Office or your Windows or even your browsers, okay? And then there could be certain vulnerabilities which are out there, okay? All these CVEs that you see, if you see the middle number is actually the year, okay? And the last number is just a code. So even those old CVEs, which is from 2016, are still exploited, okay, by certain InfoStealers, which means that if you're not updating your Windows and you are still on an older version, if the CVE still exists, you are prone to getting infected by some of these InfoStealers out there. So which means that patching and updating is very important, because this again tells you that even though you have stronger security controls, but if you're not patched 100%, somebody can actually exploit the CVE that exists out there. All right. And then when we speak about evasion techniques, so we look at different kind of payloads which are encrypted. Okay, so they are not if there is a malware infection, they are usually not detected by your antivirus solution. So that's one. Secondly, of course, is about a very mature malware which is polymorphic in nature, which means they start changing or modifying in order to produce a different hash, to avoid all kind of detection from maybe your EDRs or your AVs. And the last one would be, again, environmental awareness, which again comes from, ensuring, what is the system like? Okay, do some sort of reconnaissance before you start infecting the system. So there are different ways of evasion. But now, as we learn about how they think, how they work? Can we find out something to help us to mitigate? Okay, so this is probably the most important section of this call here, is to understand what are different strategies that you can incorporate, okay, to make sure that you are able to protect yourself. So some of the common ones that I will talk about is actually, firstly, would be to conduct a security awareness training. Why is this important? Usually, when organizations schedule some sort of training, the employees, they are not very happy, right? Nobody wants to sit in front of the laptop and just go through normal questions, normal things that they probably know about, but they don't really practice in real life. Okay, because we are prone to making mistakes or errors and not following, all the different security policies that we have. But it is important, okay? It is important to make sure that your employees understand what is security, okay? What is it that they need to do? Because not everybody in an organization is actually cybersecurity aware, right? There are people who have probably limited information about how cybersecurity works, okay, and still probably end up following their older routine, maybe they do not update their systems, not update their softwares. So we need to make sure that we create a very strong awareness on what can happen if you don't, stick to the rules. That's one. The second one is, again, talking about threat intelligence. So as I showed the malware log before, the example from Wells Fargo, right? If this happens to you tomorrow, you would probably want to know, okay? You would probably want to know that some employee in your organization got infected by a malware or an info stealer or a wiper or any kind of, malicious software. You would want to know so you can take an action immediately. Right. So if there is an employee whose system is infected, the first thing that you would like to do would be to remove the system from your corporate machine, right? And start looking at what passwords were leaked and how do you want to reset them in a way that the threat actor cannot guess or cannot perform a brute force against that. Okay. When we speak about changing passwords, a lot of people generally have a pattern that they follow. So we need to make sure that once we know something like this happened, we change the pattern, we change the passwords, and we disinfect the infected system completely, right? And the last one would be to look at IOC data, which is, again, important because you never know what's happening. And because all these crimes or these threat actors are so fast and quick and swift, which means that every day you would have different IOCs, every day you would have different data to look at. So how do you incorporate all of this together to create awareness, first of all, and secondly, to act upon it? So just to conclude, based on what Cyberint does here and how Cyberint helps in looking at different sections of threat intelligence. Okay, so what we do is that we look at the deep and dark web monitoring. Just like how I mentioned, there was a malware log, okay? So we need to make sure that we look at this information and we are able to provide it to our customers who can be aware that something wrong has happened, some system has been infected, and this is the information which is leaked out there. So we perform all of this investigation, okay? We detect if there's any data leak or any exploited credentials or exposed data which is out there. And then the indicators of compromise, which is the IOCs, as well as tracking all the threat actors in terms of their profile. What is it that they want to do, or what kind of attacks do they generally perform, or what kind of verticals or organizations are they looking at? This is all comprised within the threat intelligence module here, right? We do look at attack surface management, which means that when you know that how big is your attack surface? What is the surface that can be attacked? Which means your digital presence out there in terms of your domains, your cloud storages. The more you move to using different cloud service providers, you will tend to have a lot of storages that you will probably store your data on. Is that storage completely secure? Okay, do you know how many IPs, domains, or subdomains that you own? So that is attack surface management, where we list out your digital presence. We look at, how much of a surface that you have, and then we find any kind of vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, or errors from the outside. This is again surface web. Right. The third one would be digital risk protection. So as I spoke about before, social media and phishing and everything is now being packaged together, because the threat actor knows that only delivering a malware using, like a download from a suspicious software might not be enough. Okay, they will try multiple ways through fake social media profiles, from phishing websites or phishing emails, to try to reach out to the end user. And that is where we are able to detect if there are any kind of phishing kits or campaigns which are going out there, if there's any kind of fake profiles that we can see in terms of not just the organization, but even your executives, which can be a very good target for the threat actors. Okay, so VIP monitoring is also included within this. And the last one would be supply chain intelligence, which means that today, you would be using a lot of third parties to give you services, okay? And these third parties have access to your sensitive data, which means that if they get compromised today, you are compromised as well. So you need to know how much risk you have when you are using certain suppliers for different kind of services, okay? What is critical for you to look at, and how do you understand what is the risk that you contain with the technologies that you use, right? So you are confident, and then you know how you can probably react if something happens to you because of supply chain. So this is the technology stack of Cyberint. And after this, we also speak about remediation, because yes, detection is important. You know something has happened, but how do you actually remediate and close the loop? Okay, it's based on either, if it is anything external, it's actually based on takedowns. We can do takedowns from different kind of social media websites, takedowns of phishing domains, or any kind of information that we see on GitHub or the base sites. And we can also help you to speak to the threat actor if it is a complicated scenario where you would probably want to know how this attack actually happened to you, or what exactly did the threat actor do to enter inside your organization. So we can help to manage that as well. And the last one would be our expert threat intelligence. So we do have a lot of analysts, a lot of researchers within Cyberint who have tremendous experience in terms of understanding the dark web, in terms of finding out information, and then making sure that we are able to provide that to our customers. We do have this human intelligence as part of Cyberint services. We are able to triage alerts for you. We are able to filter out false positives for you, because that is probably the most important thing that you would be experiencing with your current threat intelligence platforms, if you're using one. So looking at true positives, looking at alerts that would be valuable to you, should be something that you can action upon, something that you can do something about it. And it's not just FYI. So that is where Cyberint brings in this technology. And based on so far the discussion that we have had on malware, okay, I think that it was useful to and get an idea of how the threat actors are working out there and what can be done in order to protect ourselves. So thank you for everybody who's spent their time today here. Any questions that I can help?
Thanks so much, AK. It's been a really, really wonderful presentation. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone else on the call did too. So we have a few questions coming in. I'll read them out for you here. So first off is, what about MFA? And how does that mitigate the risk of malware?
Oh, that's a great question, and a very commonly asked one. Having a multi-factor authentication control is very important, okay? But when we speak about different ways to bypass MFA, because the threat actor already has your credentials, which means that Now, whatever he needs to do is to make sure that he can get that one step of MFA done to log in. So if we study about attacks that have happened in the past, just like how Cisco was breached last year, the major reason was also that the threat actors were able to bypass the multi-factor authentication by doing a spam to the end user. That is one. The second one is to actually do a reverse social engineering to kind of reach out to the end user, talk, maybe call them on the phone to say that, oh, I'm speaking from the customer care and I know you're trying to make a transaction or you're trying to log in. Can you help me with your code so I can, assist you with that? That's another way. The third way, of course, is the session cookies, because we do have. So within the malware log, we do have the session cookies. And what does session cookie mean, right? They usually have a TTL. So it could be, the token could be valid for a day or a 2 or a week. So if the attacker has your information and they have the session cookie, it is very easy for them to bypass the MFA and still be able to log in using the credentials that they have.
Yep, absolutely. Makes sense. Thank you, AK. One more question came in. Would Cyberint be able to support organizations in danger, meaning hacked, in Switzerland? How would you do it, remotely or on site? Do we have a subsidiary there? So I could say a few things before I pass that over to you, AK. So this would be like, I guess, more of an incident response or digital forensics and incident response type of engagement. And we can support that. We do not have a subsidiary in Switzerland, although we do have people throughout Europe. We have a few people located in the UK, a few in Amsterdam. I'm based in Helsinki. We have the majority of the team is based in Petah Tikva in Israel. So potentially, depending on the exact details of the circumstance, maybe we would be able to support it remotely. Or if the engagement called for it, I'm sure that we would be able to send some people on site as well. So that's sort of the sales and marketing answer to that. But yeah, I can pass it over to you for maybe a more technical response.
Yeah, of course. So yes, we can support organizations globally, okay, because the data that we collect from dark web is, again, from multiple sources, like millions of sources that we can collect data from, and people are interested to hack anybody and everybody, right? So if you are based in Switzerland, we still can help you out, okay? So it's really about detection, helping you to find out what could be out there about you guys in terms of, how did the hack actually happen, okay? And whatever you know today about the hack, maybe there are different other things that also happened that you are probably not really aware about, okay? So finding out the initial access or the attack vector that the threat actor was using is also something that we can help you with, even though it's post the attack, right? And how do we do it? Yes, of course, we are a SaaS, okay, software as a service, which means that you will be able to access the Cyberint platform to understand what information is out there, okay? So whether if somebody is remote or is on-site is probably not going to be a deal breaker in this case.
Okay, so one quick follow-up from the same viewer. Would you also offer preventative analysis for government organizations? I think I can say one thing about that too. Again, so we at Cyberint collect over 40 million, between 40 and 50 million intelligence items every month. So we have sources across the deep and dark web and the open web as well. Of course, we're monitoring Telegram, Discord, marketplaces, hidden threat actor forums on the dark web that you need Tor to access. And so all of this information is essentially getting scraped and collected and put into what we call the threat intelligence data lake. The threat intelligence data lake is particularly useful for government organizations, law enforcement agencies, larger companies that want to be able to conduct their own investigations. The data lake is filterable. You can filter by the language, the date, the source, the number of other parameters. You can save custom queries to receive customized alerts. So I think government level organizations tend to find that capability very useful. AK, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it all. Yeah.
In addition to all the other capabilities, of course, that AK outlined in a slide just a moment ago. So All right, well, I think we got time for one last question. We're at the end of the hour here, but the last question is about personal devices. What risk does malware pose to corporations if employee personal devices are infected?
Of course, that's a great question. So for personal devices, again, our identities are linked together these days, right? So today, if I'm using my personal laptop and it's infected with a malware, there are different things that I'll probably be visiting, different URLs on my browser. It could be just my personal stuff. It could be just my own Gmail account. But what risk do I pose to Cyberint as a company is that even though the threat actor probably doesn't know what kind of passwords I'm using for my corporate machine, but he or she still knows and can learn about my patterns, my password patterns, right? Because I would probably be using similar passwords. And then the threat actor learns about me, my life, what am I usually interested in, what are my hobbies, what do I usually visit, and then because your email ID is a publicly available information, right? Your corporate email IDs. It's easier for people to actually get to them. So they can actually try to use this to enter inside the Cyberint network just based on my personal system, which is compromised. That is one way, right? Because they can do that based on the different patterns that they have. That's one. And secondly, because of all the COVID, a lot of things changed. People started working from home, organizations started kind of like allowing people to access corporate network from their personal laptops. There's bring your own device and stuff, which actually means that even though you have VPN today, right, you are still not being able to make sure that if there is a system which is infected, which is a personal laptop, but if you are able to access your corporate network from that, you still pose a very big risk to the organization when a malware is infected, because they can eventually lead to an account takeover, do a VPN authentication, and look at every single thing that you're visiting within your corporate network, right? Even on your personal machine. So it's not just about causing a bigger damage or a harm to the organization. It's also about protecting yourself, your own identity, your own data, even your own financial data, right? You wouldn't want your bank accounts to be compromised or somebody to make a fraud or a fake transaction using your credit card, which means that, yes, it's important for corporate security, but it is very imperative for the users to understand that their personal systems are equally important, and they must be able to protect that in every way possible. I hope I answered your question here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are at the end of the hour. I want to say thank you once again to everybody who joined us today. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We will send out the recording to this session as well as the slides after the call. And we hope to see you again soon on one of our webinars. So thanks very much, AK. Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. And everyone have a great evening or afternoon or morning or day, depending on where you are. So thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.